there, everybody, and welcome once again to All Things Irish and Rock and Roll. My name is Benny Point. Now, can you imagine being a guitar player? You're in your 20s, you love playing, you're playing with bands, you have dreams of becoming a famous guitar player, like, well, I'm not a guitar player, but you know what I mean. And you're getting great reviews on your shows, you're playing with good musicians, then one day an accident occurred. And you're a right-hand player, like our next interviewee, and one of his fingers is taken off in this particular accident. Now, this man, his name is Terry Flood. Terry is from Dublin, and Terry played around Ireland before relocating to Houston, Texas. Now, Terry has played with all sorts of people, including Duffy Circus when he was 12 years old. He had a band called the Clodhoppers, who were very popular in their time. And he went to London in 1977, played around there. When he came back, he joined Rob Strong. He played with the Cotton Mill Boys. He's played with Daddy Cool and the Lollipops, Rob Strong again. And he played in a little band that I was part of called Mail Order. And then, that was great, but one night, one day, fateful accident. Now, what did he do? I tell you what he done. He turned his guitar around and he learned how to play left-hand guitar. Now, that to me is amazing, but Terry Flood has done it. Now, he's not here to talk to us. In fact, this interview was recorded in Houston, Texas. And the interviewer's name is, get it right here, Jared Terragasa. And he is from Southpaw Guitars, Houston, Texas. So sit back and listen to Terry Flood's story. It's amazing what he's done. Terry Flood.
How long have you been playing guitar, man?
Well, I was playing guitar since I was 10, and I have an older brother, Ben. He taught me, and he's a great musician. He's 69 now. He lives in upstate Rochester, New York, and he taught me everything when I was a kid. He was brilliant, you know, because our mother was dead, so he took me under his wing, and he just about did everything that a mother and a father could do as a brother. You know, it was amazing.
That's amazing. Jimmy was telling me a very interesting story about you. Said you started out life, you're naturally right-handed, and you were playing guitar right-handed.
Yeah.
And in Ireland, right?
That's right, in Dublin, yeah, Ballyfermot.
And you were really coming up in the ranks, and then something happened. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief because it's a bit protracted. But basically, I fell from a height and I broke the fall on a rock and dislocated the elbow, broke the hand, and the finger contracted gangrene in the hospital, and it had to come off to save the hand and the arm. Otherwise, I would have been like Rick Allen from Def Leppard, who, by the way, lost his arm around the same time, mid to late 80s. You know. This happened in in '87, so I was part of the, you know, and I was 27, so I almost made the 27 club, but I survived, you know.
Wow.
Which is you know, thank you, you know what I mean, to God and all that for that, you know, because I went on to having 3 amazing kids, 2 sons and a daughter and grandchildren. I'm 62 now, and that was '87. I'm still here, and I really learned left-handed because everybody was saying, oh, Django Reinhardt, and everybody was saying, you play great with 3 fingers, and I'd still play great with 3 fingers, but I didn't want to be in the 3-legged race.
Yeah.
If you get my drift, I wanted to be able to do everything as it was before. So I embarked on a daunting task of really learning completely backwards. Being completely non-ambidextrous didn't make it any easier, but I was very determined, you know. And I was also led slightly astray by a story about Tony Iommi, because Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath lost the tips of 2 fingers, and he was a left-hander.
Right.
And a friend of mine in Ireland told me that, Tony Iommi did it. He switched to left-handed, and when he had his accident, and he did it. So I thought, it's viable.
So,
you know, and I found out later on, of course, that Tony didn't. That he was always left-handed. So by then I was knee-deep in, 3 years practice. So I just kept going, you know.
So when did you have the accident?
87.
And how old were you then?
27.
27, and then you switched to left-handed.
Yeah.
At what point? How old were you? Do you remember?
Oh, well, I switched to left-handed within about a year of the accident, but I was really plodding along. I had casts on my hand, casts on my elbow. There was several surgeries after 87 to get everything back to normal.
Yeah.
And the finger was actually amputated 3 times because they had it down to a stump. I said, you're going to have to take this bit now because I don't have any use for it.
Right.
And a great doctor in Ireland, a great hand surgeon called Seamus O'Ryan, he took me in and he did the Bart Simpson job in the middle and the middle finger and thumb to make it look a bit more, shall we say, less noticeable.
Right.
And then, so a lot of the time during the surgeries I couldn't practice, and I basically hired myself as a lead vocalist because I sing as well, you know.
Right.
So I had a lot of fun jumping around in the leather trousers doing Paul Rodgers and whatnot, you know. It's true what they say, the singer gets the girls, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that journey though, because that to me, like, I'm a left-handed guy, Jimmy's a left-handed guy.
Yeah.
What was it like knowing, hey, you know, I'm up and coming, I'm a strong guitar player, and then having to switch? Because you were determined to continue playing, right?
Yeah.
What was that journey like? Because it's
very
awkward, right?
It was very soul destroying, and there was quite a few false starts, you know, where I was so exasperated with my lack of progress, and then the injuries and the recovery from that, and the surgeries post amputation was just impeding everything. Everything was against me, but I kept going, and I got an acoustic, learned the G chord, learned the F chord, and put it down for 3 months. I went, you know, I can't do this, and I kept coming back to it. So it didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't like a seamless transition, not by a long shot, you know.
Right.
It was really, it's just about as much practice as I put in. That's what I got, you know. That's what I got back, you know. And you know, 30 years later, I practice. I'm more diligent about practicing now because I've got a little bit better, and as time I've got a few good gigs with bands that didn't know I'd switched and stuff like that, and then they found that out later on. They went, man. But 30 years, I mean, that's how long it takes to learn and play guitar, you know, proficiently anyway.
Right.
So that's no big like deal or anything like that, you know. It's 30 years later. But I hadn't got it done by 15 years. I may as well just stick around and do lead vocals and play for fun at home. But I decided to get serious about it, you know, and like put time in. I was getting up at 6 in the morning. I was reading about Andre Segovia. Like, he would get up and sit on a stool like this, and he wouldn't have breakfast for 2 hours. He'd have a glass of water, and he'd do his scales, you know. So I started getting a bit more serious about it like that, and I started getting better results. The finger was making better contact with the notes, and the pick was making better contact with the strings. Real, just, you know, fundamental, rudimental stuff like that. And then, you know, playing the electric, of course, was a lot easier because you got the effects and the whole lot, and the lighter strings. But I always say, if you can't do it on acoustic, you can't do it for real, you know.
Right. You want to show us something on that hummingbird there?
Sure.
If you don't mind.
I've been trying to tune this. It's not my guitar, it belongs to the store. So don't anybody say I'm not in tune, because it's the guitar, it's not me. A bad worker always blames his tools. Okay, so I'll just do some. A little chordy thing, you know.
Okay.
Again, just trying to do some of these kind of like slow Paco style runs. So. Try that again. Yeah.
Very cool, man. We'll cut for now and get you on electric
Sure.
a little bit.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I'll bring my own guitar next time. I could really play that properly, you know.
No, man, that was awesome.
Okay, see you soon, folks.
Thank you.
about your first electric guitar.
It was actually an Ibanez non-copy. It was just one of those old Ibanez Japanese guitars that tried to look like a Fender, but looked like a mutation of a Jaguar and a Mustang. And it was real cheap and high frets, and the action was like a cello. But it helped to develop chops, you know. And then my family bunched in together to get me an actual Ibanez copy of a Telecaster, which was much better and played great. And that was my first electric guitar. And, the family got it and paid it off together. And I was on Irish television with that in the 70s, and it was a lot of fun. It really helped me to develop my technique, because it wasn't a guitar that would impede your progress. It was, you know what the first one was.
Right.
But in retrospect, a guitar that impedes your progress, when you keep playing it, you develop big chops, you know. So it had an upside to it too, you know. But that was the size of it, you know. The first good one was. Both actually my first electric guitars were Ibanez's, you know.
Okay. Do you prefer Telecaster over Strat? Do you have no preference? Or?
I have a preference. I'm a really more Strat player. I'm
okay.
more comfortable with the Strat, with the contours, the ribcage contour, the forearm contour, and the whole layout of it. I think Leo Fender was a genius because he couldn't play. He was able to think out of the box and ergonomically design it, where it was the most successfully designed instrument of all time, you know.
Right.
Even this, like, it's a great guitar. I love it, and I'm actually getting it today. But it doesn't have the contours. It's just another sound, you know.
Right.
But it always feels like a coffee table with strings on it, with a neck sticking out of it, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas the Strat, it just kind of fits right into you, and you just, you know, you can get the instrument out of the way and focus on playing a little bit more with that, you know.
Right.
So that's not too convoluted of an answer.
Who are some of your influences in electric guitar that you were like, man, I'm really feeling that. I got to learn that. Like early on.
I would have to say, first and foremost, growing up in Dublin, Ireland, Rory Gallagher, you know.
Yeah.
And still to this day, I think Rory was number one, the greatest of all time. You know, he had his own innovative style.
He had that old beat up Strat, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, yeah. And it was the first Stratocaster to come into Ireland, actually. And, you know, Rory played a lot of sax lines on guitar because he played the saxophone as well, so he didn't think like a guitar player all the time. And his vocabulary on scales and all that, like if you listen to early Taste before Rory went solo, the solo in Moving On, it's an acoustic song, and the solo in What's Going On, it's so different, and like he just incorporates across the board, every scale going, and he's just totally innovative. He was so innovative, you know. He was totally non-derivative of any other guitar player I've ever heard, with the exception of sometimes when he was on acoustic he had a bit of Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson, because he loved those guys.
Right.
But on electric he was totally his own player from the word go. He wasn't like your proverbial amalgamation of styles genius that you have going floating around these days, but they have no originality.
Right.
You know, so for me he was always number one. But I have to mention another guitar player who was up and coming in Ireland at the time. His name was Tony Geraghty, and he was from across the canal in Dublin, in a place called Crumlin, where Conor McGregor comes from, actually. And he got killed in the Miami Showman massacre by terrorists in Northern Ireland, Protestant UVF terrorists. And Tony Geraghty probably would have been, if he had been allowed to live and live his life, I think he would have possibly superseded Rory even as a player. He was phenomenal, you know, just off the charts phenomenal. I saw him live a few times. I was about 12 and 13 years old, and I was like, after hearing Rory and listening to Rory, I mean, seeing this guy live was like, oh, you know.
It's like another level.
Yeah, and I heard Rory went to check him out at one point in Dublin, because there was a buzz going around about Tony Geraghty's playing, and Eric Bell from Thin Lizzy, who was also in at that time, a big name, went and checked him out as well, and the next thing you know, he was dead. So it was a terrible loss, not just to the Irish music scene, but to the international music scene. It would have been another, like, Tommy Bolin, just so out there.
Wow.
Where was he coming from? Amazing. And see, his brother Carl, who I work with his brother Carl Geraghty, a sax player, with the legendary Rob Strong, Ireland's godfather of soul, father of Andrew Strong from The Commitments.
Okay.
And so Tony would have been listening, like Rory, he would have been listening to his brother Carl Geraghty playing sax and copying and emulating some of the sax scales on the guitar. See, people who listen to Coltrane, who play guitar, they're always different and they're always better. They're always more innovative, because they're not playing guitar scales, they're playing sax scales, you know. And it's just really something to take note of your learning, you know. Listen to other players, other instruments, and copy that. Like what Malmsteen did with Paganini, you know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, wow, Paganini on electric guitar with Stratton and Marshall. Forget about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So to end on something real quick here, you said you're going to take this Les Paul home. What do you like about this Les Paul? I'm going to get some close-ups here.
Well, it's just really pretty much very much based on what an original Les Paul was like. You know, it's got a fat neck, which I really love, and everything about it. I love the colour, the finish, the cherry, the dark cherry sunburst. The action's set up a bit light for me and a bit low. I use 10s with slightly higher action. It's got 9s and a low action sitting, so it kind of gets away from me a little bit. But it's just like a great sound, you know. It's a great sound, and it's a lot easier to play than a Strat. You know, the Strat, you have to really fight it if you're using heavy strings. Les Paul kind of plays you, you know. I've got to tell this thing to stop playing me, you know.
You want to play something out real quick?
Thanks for having me, Roy.
No, thank you.
Up, Barry Framer, come up.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I want to say one more last word.
Yeah.
My dear departed friend, Colin Miller,
Yeah.
who just recently passed away. A lovely day.